Sometimes even our medical system loses the concept of the patient being a human being, wherein we lose that the disease is not impacting just the body of the person. Somewhere it is impacting his emotional status, and somewhere it is impacting his family life, his social structure, and more importantly, it is impacting his spirituality. Is our medical system equipped to deal with all those things? Today, we are going to discuss about enhancement of quality of life through compassionate support. So here you can see that there are two different words, two good words, good phrases, like quality of life and compassionate support. This particular topic is being discussed in the context of chronic diseases. When we say chronic, what we are meaning is that any disease that requires the patient to fight it out for a longer time, like months and years, and requires the families to invest their time and leave their routines to support that particular patient, like cancers, chronic COPDs, liver failures, kidney failures, and many such end-stage dementias, different types of dementias, Parkinson's, any of these chronic illnesses which have a lot of burden on the family and the patient. These are the diseases, and in that particular context, we are going to discuss the quality of life and compassionate support. When we are saying compassionate support, what exactly are we talking about? When a person is diagnosed with a chronic illness, so the first thing that he does is visit a hospital, a regular hospital, gets to meet a physician or a specialist, gets a battery of tests done, a diagnosis is arrived, and he starts his journey with cure of the disease. It might take months, it might take years. When the journey starts, somewhere in the context of curing the disease, with our eagerness to cure the disease, the family or sometimes even our medical system loses the concept of the patient being a human being, wherein we lose that the disease is not impacting just the body of the person. Somewhere it is impacting his emotional status, and somewhere it is impacting his family life, his social structure, and more importantly, it is impacting his spirituality. Is our medical system equipped to deal with all those things? Because of the volume of patients, which keeps on raising, because we see number of, this much of, percentage of people are diagnosed with one particular chronic illness. It keeps on raising. That particular statistics, if we see, it keeps on raising. So how do they equip themselves to take care of this particular thing? That's when a specialty of medicine has been introduced, which is called palliative medicine or palliative care. Because with that particular line of medicine, the intention is to offer compassionate care to the patients. So when we are saying compassionate care, along with the pain management and relief from the symptoms of the disease and the treatments that they're undergoing, we also look at the impact of the disease on their mindset. Well, how is it affecting them? Are they entertaining any suicidal thoughts? Is it impacting their mental well-being? Are they depressed? Are they angry? Are they guilty? So we try to understand that impact. And next thing we do is understand the impact on their social structure. So when this sort of, especially cancer burden is so high in our society that the patient loses his job. So the breadwinner is not there any longer in the family scenario. So how does the family survive? What happens to these kids? Do they get dropped out of schools? Nobody is there to pay their fees. And there is a lot of social discrimination. There is so much of taboo attached to many diseases. Many people have, they do not have complete information if cancer is contagious or not. Because of that, even now here, many stories about they're not being allowed into their communities. They're not being, made part of any decision making in their communities. So this is like they're suddenly cut off from their community. We are all social beings. We are all social animals. We want connection with our community. We want connection with our society. and family especially. Certain times, even these family ties are disrupted because of the disease. We see many times that, especially in certain cancers, divorces happen, they're abandoned, they're pushed out. Recently, we came across a case where the patient is asked to leave the house, vacate the house immediately, because in case death happens, it's not all right with the house owner. So there are so many social issues. So unless we address these sort of issues, it is not a possibility to offer complete support for the patient. Just because he takes some pain management medications, or just because he's undergoing some treatment, these issues still remain the same. They're still disturbing him. They're still causing him a lot of stress. So how do we handle all that? Who does that work? Is there a specialty medicine? That's where the answer, or that particular question the answer to that particular question is palliative medicine and palliative care. And most importantly, the spirituality of the person is disrupted. When we say spirituality, we all have a reason to live. We all have a hope that tomorrow is going to be better, or today's problem is just temporary for the day, and we might look forward to a better day tomorrow. But for patients who are fighting these sort of chronic illnesses, there is no such hope. Tomorrow might be worse. If not same, it might get worse. There's never going to be a better day. So what we all have to understand is that, so what gives them hope? What gives them that support that they need to get up and face the day with the same enthusiasm? Or what gives them that strength that they're still alive, they're not dead yet? So how do we give that support or hope for those patients who have to face every day with the same set of problems, which are worsening or improving on a daily basis? So when we are talking about compassionate support, we are ensuring that a patient is handled from a humane angle. Apart from addressing his physical issues, we will also be addressing his emotional, social, and spiritual issues. That's when the healing for the patient starts. When he feels supported, when he feels understood, then the healing actually starts for the patient. All of us have a need that we are understood by our community or our family. When that need is met, that's when the healing starts for the patient. So that's why we are talking about compassionate care. In compassionate care, especially palliative care, the specialty is that we do not involve mainly in the cure of the disease. There is a specialist for that. So we'll talk in context of specifically cancer. So when we're talking about cancer, there's an oncologist, there's a radiologist, and there are so many special alternate medical professions which involving in curing the disease. There is a line, that is the palliative care line. What it does is it addresses the pain associated with the disease, or the symptoms associated with the disease, or the pain and the symptoms which come as a byproduct of the treatment they are undergoing. Especially chemotherapies, radiation therapies, they give a lot of side effects to the patients. And sometimes it is not possible for the mainline physicians to address all of them. So there is a component of palliative care requirement for these sort of terminal patients, these sort of chronic patients. So physical aspect is not for the cure of the disease, but only for the palliation of the symptoms or palliation of pain. So we have to be very clear about it. Palliative care physicians or palliative care medicine does not involve in curing the disease. It involves in palliation of the symptoms in such a way that they work on the experience of the disease for the patient. The patient might be experiencing or is diagnosed with a very serious illness like cancer, but his experience of the disease should be in such a way that he doesn't lose hope. It should be in such a way that his mental happiness is not disturbed that much. When the pain is not addressed, it has a toll on all these fronts. It affects his mental peace, it affects his social structure, and it affects his spirituality. So by addressing this pain and symptoms, the palliative medical people, they achieve an impact, a positive impact on all three other domains of this person. So we have discussed what is compassionate care. Now the second phrase that was there in the title is quality of life. Quality of life is so personal for everybody. what I consider quality is might be very different for you and all. So we have to consider what the individual person is feeling or perceiving his quality of life to be. If a person who doesn't have 2 square meals a day, if you provide him good food, he might feel that, yes, my quality of life is good. But that's not the answer for everybody. A person who is screaming at the top of his lungs with pain and he's suffering with many side symptoms of the disease and the treatment, if you palliate them, that's good enough. He thinks that his quality of life is good. So we have to understand each person's requirement. For that, we need to interact on an individual level, both with the patient and the families, and understand what will improve their quality of life in the context of living with a chronic illness, like the ones we have mentioned before. Like, for example, how is it impacting his health or his total wellness? How do we go about it? How to resolve those issues? Has he lost purpose in his life? So how to work? What can the psychologists or the counselors can do about it? So then connectedness. Is he feeling connected with the society or with the family, his own family? So how do we resolve those family issues for them? Is he feeling supported enough that he's feeling secure? I'm taken care of. There is something there for me to take care of. There is a team or somebody who is there for me. And is somebody respecting my wishes, patient autonomy? Is somebody taking my wishes into consideration? Or am I being, pushed into something which I don't like? So these sort of things mean different things for different people. People coming from people who have not much of formal education, coming from rural areas, they do not understand what autonomy is. They don't relate to it. They say that my son wants me to do this, my daughter wants me to do this, so I like to do. But for some people, it doesn't mean that. They say that I didn't want to go for chemotherapy, but my family is forcing me. My word has no meaning just because I have a disease. They have lost their own self-worth because their word is not taken seriously by the family and the community. So we have to understand what it means, what quality of life means for each person. Like, for example, we have to understand their expectations. We have to understand their value systems, and we have to understand their emotional status. Then we can offer that particular quality of life for the patient. So the goal of compassionate care is to improve the quality of life of a person living with chronic illnesses, to improve the experience of the disease in such a way that he doesn't suffer in all the 4 planes that we have discussed just now. So who can offer this particular care? Who all can offer palliative care? And who can take it? When we say who can take it, any person who is seriously ill can take this particular care, palliative care. Here, if you see me saying the palliative care, you might think that why is she not using palliative medicine? Because palliative care is offered by a multidisciplinary team, wherein, because it is talking about a care on social front, emotional front, and spiritual front, which is not done by the physicians. So that is the reason we use the term palliative care. We don't use palliative medicine. Palliative medicine is part of palliative care. So any person with any serious illness can avail it. Can they avail it when they're undergoing some treatments? Yes, of course they can avail it. Can they avail it when the treatment options are closed for them? Yes, they can avail it. And we'll discuss about it at a later time in our session. So this can be availed by anybody who is fighting a chronic condition. So what's the goal of palliative care? As we have discussed, the goal is to offer compassionate care and palliate their symptoms, and then improve the quality of life of the patients and the families. One more beautiful thing about palliative care is that it does not talk about just the patient. In most of the hospitals, when we go, in our mainline medical system, the concentration is on the patient. What is the patient facing? How can we help the patient? How can we cure the disease for the patient? But what happens to the family, which is equally struggling along with the patient? Who is looking out for them? The disease has altered their lives too. especially in a close-knit societies, close-knit families. If a person is diagnosed with some sort of chronic illness, it affects the entire household. Are we addressing the issues of the family? So in palliative care, it is not just about the patient, it's about their families too. They might not have any physical issues, but they might have many psychological issues. They might have many social issues and spiritual issues. Many times we face questions like, my father was a wonderful person. He was such a kind-hearted person. He has helped many. How come he's diagnosed with cancer? So many people have these sort of deep questions because our religion or our belief system teaches us that if we are good, only good happens to us. And we take that disease is a sort of punishment from God. So these are deeply ingrained into most of us. I'm not saying everybody, but most of us. So when this is ingrained, the families also face a lot of distress. If a person so eminent and so good-hearted and so kind is diagnosed with cancer, then what about us? I haven't done any of those good deeds. What about me? Will I die a bad death? Am I going to die very horribly in a lot of pain and things like that? So these sort of questions, they start questioning their own mortality, and they start doubting their own value systems. So here in palliative care, we improve the quality of life of, along with the patient, we improve the quality of life of families too. So it can be taken by everybody who is undergoing some curative treatments for their chronic illnesses. So as I said, here if you can look at the diagram, it is talking about the patients and the families. And the best part of palliative care is if somebody is undergoing a curative treatment for cancer, like radiations or chemotherapies, it is mandatory that they go to hospitals, they go to medical facilities, they're uprooted from their homes. As a simple example, I can say, if we have a very bad headache, the first thought for us is, let's go back home for the day. Let's wrap it up and go back home. If a simple headache or a simple, small acute problem like that can make us think like that, what about these patients? They're uprooted, they're hospitalized for a very long period in their, in the medical facilities. So what sort of impact it will have on their total well-being? So what palliative care does is, if you're suffering with side effects, some sort of a pain, you don't have to rush to hospitals, because this pain, these medications that the palliative care team gives is not going to anyhow impact the disease directly. So it is offered at homes, it is offered in hospitals, it is offered in any such facilities like ours. So the best part of palliative care team is patients need not uproot themselves from their comfort zone and come to a facility so that their pain is managed, so that their quality of life is better. So it's the best part of palliative care. And as we have been talking about quality of life, it improves the quality of life. Imagine a person who is unable to eat anything. He's throwing up non-stop because of the chemotherapies. Repeatedly, he's throwing up. And some sort of palliation to reduce his vomitings and these sort of things. It will give a hope for him that he still can eat something. He can still exercise or indulge in some cravings for himself. So thus that is what quality of life translates to a patient. This is not a spiritual session that where we are talking quality of life is wherein we think that there is a God in everybody. No, we are not talking that. We're talking in simple, workable translation of what it means for the patient. It's very, very important. And it can be done by any type of healthcare professionals. It can be done by volunteers. So you might ask me, what can volunteers do in palliative care? Say, for example, there is somebody who is offering palliative care, like our center, which we'll be discussing about at a later time. If you're aware of it, now after the session, you'll be aware that there is an organization by name Sparsh Hospice, which takes care of palliative care, which offers palliative care, both for patients who are taking treatment and patients who have stopped treatment for different reasons. If you share that information to many people, that itself that shows that you are a volunteer. You're taking the services into your own communities. So volunteers play a very major role in offering palliative care. And as we have discussed, It offers comfort on all the four planes.